Welcome to Morning Joe with Tom, with your host, Thomas Chappell. Get ready to listen to real-life stories from inspiring leaders who have overcome incredible challenges to rise to the occasion. If you're ready to add some pep to your morning with a new outlook on leadership, then grab your cup of coffee. It's time to be inspired. Here's your host, Thomas Chappell.
Hey, Dennis. Great to have you on the show today.
Hi, Tom. Nice to talk to you. Thanks for
Absolutely.
welcoming onto your very welcoming show. As a matter of fact, I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, yes. And I'm so glad. I have been anxious to have you on. And that video that you gave me, it was amazing. And unfortunately, listeners, you got to kind of attend one of his webinars to kind of see it. But I'm telling you, it's absolutely amazing. It's gonna blow your mind with the knowledge. But let me back up a little bit. And Dennis, and you and I, we met through Graham, who's out of England. And I just kind of want the listeners to really kind of understand a little bit about you, a little bit about your background and where you kind of came from and how that you came up with this wonderful idea.
Okay, well, that's a great lead-in article. You know, the kid that the kid in grammar school, he came home and told his mom that he failed the test today, and she goes, "What was the test on?" And he says it was on whatever. And she goes, "Well, that's what your dad does for a living. Why didn't you ask him those questions before the test?" And the kid says, "I didn't want to know that much." So when you ask me an open-ended question, your listeners may be going, "Oh man, there's too much fire hose here." So I'll try to encapsulate it so it's a little easier to digest. So you know, in from so many years ago, and I'm not the youngest guy in the room, obviously. From a long time back, I've been interested in the stock market. Um, I just love the stock market. I mean, I guess when I was really young, I really liked poker. But at one point, I was old enough to have a few bucks, and I started looking at the stock market. And then I started working in the stock market. I actually worked on Wall Street for many years, and just fell in love with studying stocks. I mean, I've made some money, I've lost money, just like everybody. And if your listeners ask me, what's the market going to do tomorrow? I don't know. If they asked me it yesterday, I wouldn't have known either. Had I known that it was going to go down 700 points today, I probably would have done something yesterday. But nobody really knows what's going to happen from day to day. So the backdrop is I really like studying stocks to buy and sell them. Okay, so now I've had a long career both working on Wall Street, actually listening to guys like me trying to sell me something from some technology company. And I've actually had the opportunity for working for big technology companies trying to sell stuff to people like on Wall Street. So I've seen this kind of movie from both sides. So while I'm working for these large tech companies, one day I said to myself, I really enjoy the market and I have all of this knowledge. Not that I'm an expert, but I have a lot of practical knowledge. How can I use this to the benefit of my company? And I gave that a lot of thought. And I realized one day, the the frameworks and the guidance and the rules and the logic about studying stocks, good company, bad company, financially healthy company, financially distressed company, those same kind of conclusions would be very helpful to sales and marketing teams to figure out, A, who should they go after in the market to try to sell stuff to? B, who to avoid going after in the market because they're probably not going to lead anywhere. C, it's like a dog that chases a car. Sales guy's chasing a customer. Okay, what are you going to do when you catch him? What's the dog going to do with the car when he catches it after he runs it down the street? He doesn't know what to do with it. So I also help the marketing people message their varieties of content to make them attractive and worth hearing by an audience who could be potential buyers. So I packaged up an in-person class that I used to deliver for my company. of 4 hours. And I called it Windows on Wall Street.
Mhm.
And the point was to help salespeople and marketing people understand how to study primarily public companies and look through their cash flows and balance sheets and income statements and the myriad of other things that they could take advantage of in order to refine their go-to-market list. One perfect example, I think, Tom, pretty much makes the point. If you could actually tell which companies were wealthy and flooded with money versus companies who were broke and in deep distress, you might decide, you know what? I think I'll just go after the healthy companies and maybe avoid the companies that were broke. That's not a universally perfect paradigm, but the rabbit's foot, you may carry a rabbit's foot. It may be healthy for you, but it didn't do the rabbit any good because you're sitting here with the rabbit's foot. So anyway, I packaged up this class and it got rave reviews at my last company. As a matter of fact, over about a few years that I did the classes there, I trained up about 2,200 sales and marketing people on this Windows on Wall Street. And when COVID hit, I had to change up my delivery because I couldn't be everywhere around the world delivering classes. So I broke it then into a 2-hour class that I deliver over Zoom to technology companies who are selling into the public marketplace anywhere in the world. Let me take a breather there, Tom, because that was a long answer and maybe more than you wanted to know or your listeners wanted to.
No, absolutely. This is, a lot of my folks are technology companies. So it's, they're, you probably piqued their interest right there whenever you was talking about your targets, uh, and all that you work with. So, you know, I understand the process of getting with the salespeople and the marketing folks and helping them understand. But what is the leader, assuming that let's say that the leader hasn't got a full team yet? How does this benefit the time crunch area for them to be able to kind of do this analysis and
Yeah,
all?
that's a good insight. That's a very good question, Tom. So there's a couple of dimensions to it. First off, um, first off, I'm a consultant, right? So I rent by the hour, if you will, right? So I mean, I don't get married to my clients, right? I come in, give it my best shot, with one variation. I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so this isn't this isn't going to break the bank in any company. Um, when I run these workshops. Now, if they have a team of 500 people, then there's going to be a whole bunch of workshops, obviously, right? Because you only really want to do a workshop. I don't like doing webinars. I like doing workshops. And the difference in my vocabulary is the workshops are people are interactive, asking questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, instead of a webinar, which tends to be kind of missionary and preaching and talking for 25 minutes without any input from the audience. So if I'm going to do workshops, I'd like to do them to, somewhere between 5 and 20 people. So depending on how many people they want to train up at their company. Anyway, so you get the idea, you can do the math. But that's just one dimension to it. The other dimension I think is much more fascinating. I am convinced, and through the qualification process, which is what I'm doing, I'm qualifying the marketplace for my clients. So either they come to me with a list of clients or prospects that they want to go after, or if they don't have one, they say, can you give me one? And in both cases, of course, I can do the analysis and give them a list or qualify their list. So let's say they give me a list of 100 names that their Salesforce in total is going after, say 10 accounts for 10 people or something like that, whatever the dimension is. And I come back and say to them, you got 100 accounts here, but 30 of them are useless. You're not going to make a dime over here. And here's the 15 reasons why you may not make a dime unless you get extraordinary lucky or you're married to the CEO's uh, daughter or something. You're not going to make any money over there. But then there's a great bunch of accounts in the middle. But these 10 accounts, these 10 accounts, that's where you should be putting 80% of your energy. So you
Hmm.
shouldn't put 1 unit of energy, you have 100 units of energy and put 1 unit into each account. No, find the 10 that matter, put 80% of your energy there. And if I left your audience to think about this long enough, which we don't have time for, but you would come to the realization that, oh, so Dennis is talking about making the top of the funnel narrow, not fat. Okay, so I had 100, and now I got 50, and 10 of them really matter. So you've narrowed the funnel. And what you've done by doing that is avoiding loss and waste of units of work and money and energy and time and everything else to accounts that probably aren't going to lead to the conclusion that you need for them to lead to. Now, if I look at it into the future, my experience is at the end of the fiscal year, whatever the fiscal year ends. Hey, there's an interesting note here. I've done a lot of work for Indian companies over my lifespan. The audience, if they're not from India, probably don't know this. Do you know all Indian companies, all public Indian companies, have the same fiscal year?
No.
I know it's like unbelievable. In the United States, they're all over the lot, right? The year ends in June, the year ends in November. All public companies in India end on 3/31. Okay, so that may be of interest to you, especially if you're selling in India, to know when the budget cycle begins, because it begins at a different time of the year, but it begins at the same time of the year for everyone, unlike the way it works in most other countries around the world. Okay, so you have to develop your go-to-market plan, and through this process, you can figure out how to qualify the funnel, make the funnel much more productive. And not only does making the top smaller help you, but I submit the bottom of the funnel becomes the wide part. And by wide, I mean this. If you're using less at the top, you're going to get to the bottom a lot faster than you would have otherwise with a fat top. It stands to reason. If you're focusing your energy so tightly, you're going to get to the bottom, success, much faster, which means you could be doing something else with all the rest of your time to chase even more accounts, right? And not only are you going to get to the bottom faster, you're probably going to get to the bottom wider. And by that, I mean, my approach delivers a excellent competitive differentiator. My class attendees learn to distinguish themselves from all the other competitors they deal with. They showed up differently. Their vocabulary is different. Their point of view is different. And they're no longer spending their time trying to differentiate their service or product or offering or tool or whatever it is from the competitors that they can still be doing that. But when they show up at a client, they show up as a business person. And by doing that, they jump the shark. They're no longer in the ladder with the other 10 vendors. They are over here on this side, on the profit side, making business arguments to business people. And by reaching business people, they've dramatically expanded how many people they're going to go after. Not how many companies, how many people. So even if I get them down to 10 or 20 qualified accounts, the audience at those accounts become much wider because they're talking not just to the technology side, assuming they're selling technology, they're also talking to the business side. So you qualify the accounts, which means your energies will be more focused, and you've dramatically expanded how many people you're going to talk to at that institution because you're going to be making business arguments. My phrase for this, my trademark is CA squared. You change your arguments, you're going to change your audience.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
so you got a funnel that's upside down. They're getting to the bottom faster. I submit the bottom of the funnel is going to be bigger because as you're talking to all these people across an organization now, you're going to find more opportunities than you would have if you're talking to the tech side, all chasing one particular deal at one particular company. So the funnel is narrow at the top. You get to the bottom of the funnel faster, and you get to the bottom of the funnel with more wins than you would have otherwise, even at the same institution. It's mathematics.
And with that capability, I mean, it's like you've opened up more doors within the same company than what most people ever get. They get stalled out at some gatekeeper, and you're getting them right past that. So that's
That's the
that,
ideal. That's the philosophy. That's the process. And I will
that's
take
beautiful.
them. I will take them and do this analysis for them. So I said, I come in, I do my thing and I leave. That's generally true. But what's evolved from my Windows on Wall Street workshops is the next thing that happened. I trademarked as sales with an edge. And when I would get to the end of the classes, first there would be, not Super Bowl happiness, but I mean, people would be very happy because they've seen new ways to do the very same, to work on the same accounts that they had never seen before. But very often the boss will say to me, well, what should I do now? I mean, what should I do? I mean, this is fabulous. And he'll say, give me some advice. What should I do? I said, well, if I were you, I'd probably go down to Wall Street, whatever that means, and find me an equity analyst who wants to join your company and hire in an equity analyst to be, lovingly, I refer to this as being a propeller head. I am a propeller head. Get them to join your company and be the propeller head for your sales guys. And what generally happens is, well, I'm not doing that. That's expensive. I go, okay, well, you asked me. They said, what else can you do? I said, well, I've taught you how to hunt, but you're saying you're not ready to hunt. Right. Okay. You want me to hunt for you? Oh, will you do that? I go, sure. That's what I call sales with an edge. That's what I am into, actually analyzing public companies and producing reports that they could use to figure out how to go after the company, who to go at, not who. I don't find people. I found job descriptions. Okay, here's a bank. Here's the job. Here's the name of the person. Here's the title of the managing director of whatever profit center. I don't know what his name is because that's not my job. That's your job. So I'll tell you the job functions to go after at that institution and what to say to them when you get to talk to them. You go figure out who the person is with that job function. Duncan Hines makes cakes. They make cake mixes, right? And they came out with a cake mix 30 years ago. But they had refined it so well that when you were making the cake, you almost didn't do anything. You got to put the cake mix in, and then you put in some water, and you mix it up, and you stick it in the oven. Okay, I'm oversimplifying, and product didn't sell well. Didn't sell well, and they tried to figure out why. And when they interviewed their customers, they said, we don't really feel like we're cooking here. We just put water in your mix, and it goes in the oven. So they had this great idea. They go, you know what? We're going to take the oil out, so you got to put oil in. We're going to take out the eggs, so you got to put egg in, and we're taking out the milk, so you got to put milk in. And it's exploded in success because now all of a sudden the same person at home is now putting multiple ingredients into the mix and are contributing to the overall outcome. And it was and to this day, it's still a very, very popular approach with cake mixes is you want to involve the chef at least a little bit in the cooking. So the same thing on sales with an edge. I will do that for you on a, per diem or per project basis and give you qualified leads. And what you should say to them, you got to go out and figure out who those people are and do the outreach to go get those people. It's not like I'm going to get on a plane and go to a sales call with a sales guy. No, I'm going to do the analysis in the back office, and I'm going to come back and give them the reports through sales with an edge. So those are my two complementary but discrete value propositions. Sometimes I do one and not the other. Either one.
Right.
Either one. It depends.
Well, I have to say, I don't know of anyone doing what you're doing. And so that makes you very unique from that perspective. And it wasn't until Graham had introduced us in that effort that I realized just how important this is to a company. I mean, I did it in grad school. Okay. And then I did it for some friends that Dan Sugar that was at the commodities. He and I used to play back and forth with it. And I used to play as an investor, as an analyst. Uh, and but I have to say, you have taken it not just a little. You've taken it into the stratosphere on this, and I, you know, no lie, no boasting, no blowing smoke. If companies trying to stick with this AI business, you're not going to get what you got. They're not going to get that because the AI just isn't capable of doing that level of analysis. They're doing superficial. What you've got, so many businesses need. If listeners, if you are in dealing with bigger companies, publicly traded companies, and you're not calling Dennis today, I'm sorry. I will read about you, sadly, in the obituaries. So,
Yeah, how many of your listeners are going to identify with this? I want to just throw out a kind of metaphor. So I've worked for at least three of the largest public companies, technology companies in the world. Okay. And I've also worked for startups. And okay, fine. But in those three technology companies, here's what would happen every year. I talked about fiscal year earlier. So they all had different fiscal years. But at the end of the fiscal year, we'd all get in a meeting and it was obvious. Management was unhappy. They didn't make their numbers. They never make their numbers. And of course, that's because the numbers they're given are ridiculous. But okay, they didn't make their numbers and they're grumpy. Sales guys, grumpy. They didn't make their numbers. They're grumpy too. Marketing team, they're grumpy. I mean, they work like heck, all sincere, breaking their back. And almost never do people make their numbers. And so next year, it over again and they go, we're going to work harder and work smarter. Okay. And invariably they get to the end of the year and everybody's still going, how come we're not making our numbers? All right. Now watch this. Now, if that's true with your company, I'm the right guy. If that ain't true, you're making your numbers every year. Okay. I could help you. But I mean, you don't even need the rest of the broadcast. But if you aren't making your numbers every year, I'm the kind of guy that can help you. Okay. So why don't companies make their numbers? All right, let's try this. I think this is a nightmare for salespeople. Salespeople are typically given a territory or a set of accounts to go after.
mhm.
All right. So you live in Virginia,
Mhm.
right, Tom? You live in Virginia. So I'm going to give Tom a bunch of accounts in Virginia. And why does that make sense? Well, that makes sense so Tom can drive around to these accounts and go see them and have a nice relationship, maybe play golf with them. Okay, so there is a reasonableness to that, but it's all predicated on wherever the heck you live so you can get to these accounts. Okay, but that's the only thing that ties them together. It's where does Tom live? So there's a limitation. Okay, now there's another way that people give out accounts, and that's by market cap. They go, all right, forget Virginia. You're going to have all these accounts that are over 5 billion in revenue. Okay, I mean 5 billion in market cap. You're going to take these big mega accounts or you're going to take smaller accounts or whatever, and they qualify their accounts by market cap. That's a very common. Okay. I try to argue my brains out that doesn't make any sense. The way to pick accounts is by revenue. Why? Please don't spend money because of their market cap. They spend money because of their revenue. And companies of similar size revenue spend similar amounts of money for things like products, services that you may have to offer. That's kind of like just one simplified working example. But now here comes the crunch. And people gasp when I say this. Now, what would you do if your boss said to you, this isn't working? And I'm not firing you, but this isn't working. Every year we come up short. So what I'm going to do this year is you pick your accounts. Okay. We got 20 guys, 20 men and women in the sales force. We're selling in the United States or France or Italy or India or whatever. You go out there and you look at the world and you come back and tell me which 10 accounts you want to go after. And I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to you make the arguments about why you should go after that account. Now, realize 5 other salespeople may pick that same account. So your rationale for getting that account is going to have to beat the other 4 people who, whether you know they're going to, okay, you get the idea. But you're going to pick your own accounts. And the salespeople go, oh, this is great. I'm going to get to pick my own accounts. And of course, my next question to them is, how are you going to pick them? How are you going to pick those accounts? Because realize, before you sign up for this, when you get to the end of the year and you don't make your numbers and you pick those accounts, who are you going to complain to?
That's right.
So while it's freeing and empowering to pick your own accounts, unless you pick them on a really good framework, you may get to the end of the year and still not make your numbers, and you're not going to have anywhere to hide because they're the accounts you fought for. You fought for these accounts and you still didn't make your numbers. So inherent in that conundrum is, what criteria would you use to pick accounts to go after? And I submit, I'm right here. Roman's numbers will be very helpful in telling you how to pick accounts, how to pick them, what arguments can you make to them. So anyhow, that is intended to break the back of that end of fiscal year problem where everybody's disgruntled. This is a way for them to go, man, we made our numbers. I think we're going to do more of that next year. So it's self-reinforcing once you get the machine running. But as you said, Tom, that machine isn't running in very many places. And if it is running, it's not running very efficiently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Dennis, I really appreciate all of your time. And I know you're extremely busy fella. So in respect of that, I want to ask if you could do us one more favor. And that is, how could folks be able to contact you? Because I just kind of see that your door is going to be knocked on at this point.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. So I'm easy to find. I do have a bit of a reputation in this area. My really primary vehicle is LinkedIn, and I also have a YouTube channel. But on LinkedIn, I am not Dennis Rodman. I am Dennis Roman. I get a lot of people mixing me up. When I go to Japan, they go, "Oh, I thought you were Dennis Rod." I go, "No, I'm Dennis Roman." My email is dennis@romansnumbers.com. My website is www.romansnumbers.com. And my phone is 9, and operators are standing by. My phone is 954-806-6660. So find me on LinkedIn, find me on YouTube. Just find me. I mean, that's the big thing. Just find me.
Absolutely. And we will put the links there in the description for you to kind of help make it easier. And reach out. It's worth the conversation and seeing what can be done there. Dennis, thank you again. Thank you for taking time out with us today. And I want to give you the last word of the day.
Dynamite, Tom. You're very generous, and I very much appreciate it. Finding an audience is the difficult part. Finding what to say, relatively easy. Finding who could say the message to the world, relatively easy. Finding people in the world who want to listen to the message, extremely difficult. So I'm in your debt, Tom, for bringing me in and giving me an opportunity to talk to your audience. I thank you very much.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. And I tell you, it is a definite wake-up call. So thank you very much. Dennis, you have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Morning Joe with Tom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you next time for more real life stories and inspiration on Morning Joe with Tom.